This is exactly how we price our vacation rentals. So pricing when it comes to vacation rentals is such an important thing. And today what we're going to do is we're going to take you through a case study and show you just how important pricing can be. Then we're going to break down and give you exactly how we price our vacation rentals so that you know how to do that too. Pricing is something that 100% is the most important thing when it comes to maximizing your revenue when you are running vacation rentals. So in our example today, we're going to show you the difference between two particular properties and how they operate. So this is a duplex that is at the beach. So there's a condo. There are two condos effectively. They're both two bed, two bath properties. They both are set up very, very similarly on the inside. There's very little difference. They're exactly 2 streets away from the beach. There's very little difference between these two properties when it comes to the actual aesthetic of these properties. Now, that being said, one of these properties we run and operate, and one of these properties, a property management company, local property management company runs and operates. Now, what I want you to focus in on here is the difference in revenue that's generated. So on this screen, if you go to the revenue section for Totally Relaxing, the revenue in 2023 or over that last 12-month period was $17,900. Now, that is the property that is run by this property management company. Now, if you go over to the other side here, which is Aquahaven, this is a property that we run and manage and have very specific systems and processes in place for in order to make sure that we maximize our revenue and give our guests great experiences. Now, if you look at the revenue on this property, and this is data that's pulled from AirDNA, it shows that we made $56,000 or approximately $56,000 in revenue over that same 12-month period. Now, there's a million different reasons and a million different things that are associated with making this happen. So it's not just pricing, right? There's lots of operations, lots of things that need to be put in place in order to make this work effectively. But today we're going to focus in on pricing. I'll give you all the rest of the stuff in another video at another point in time. But make sure that you stick around to the end of this because I'm going to give you our exact pricing model. So exactly how we do this, our methodology, and precisely how we set this up in order to generate this type of differential in revenue. So we're going to dive right into this thing. We're going to start with showing you just some simple differences. These are screenshots from actual Airbnb, showing you differentials in pricing. So the first property here we have is that Totally Relaxing property that's run by the property management company. Now, this is a May date for this property management company. And what I want you to look at is what they're charging per night in May, which is it's not an on-season month, but it's a relatively hot month as we come into the primary on-season for these properties. They're charging $218 per night, and it's $218 across the board that they charge for this particular property. Now, if you cut over to us for this exact same date, this exact same week, we're charging $199. So we're actually charging less than this property management company for the exact same property next door than what they are in this mid-season, not quite off-season, but mid-season time frame. And I'll tell you exactly why we're doing that here in a second. So now let's cut to the high season. So July is the prime season in this area for people to come to the beach. Everybody's on vacation. It's time for them to go out and get to the beach. So there's super high demand during this time frame. Now, the property management company for Totally Relaxing here for July 8th through 15th, is charging $272 a night. Now, when you go over to us for Aquahaven, we're charging $371 per night. And so why do we do this? This is the peak season. This is where the highest demand is, and therefore it demands the highest prices. So when you're trying to navigate and negotiate the difference between price and book rate, or price and the supply and demand of the particular area, you want to make sure that you're very conscientious of how many people are coming and going and what is that specific demand for that market, so that you don't underprice that property and you maximize that revenue for that particular time. Also, in the off season, you want to make sure that you are not overpricing that property so that you maximize your occupancy at that particular point in time too. So here it is. This is our exact pricing model that we use in order to maximize our revenue or generate revenue that outperforms a lot of these different property management companies. So here's how it works. Price at the beginning of the year is based on last year's performance. So we increase 25% on dates that were booked more than 3 months in advance. Then what we do is we take a look at the CPI, so the Consumer Price Index, effectively the inflation rate for that year. We add 3% to that on months that were booked within that 3-month window. So if it was booked within that 3-month window, we add 3% to CPI. We then go to AirDNA and look at things like the RevPAR on AirDNA in order to try to just fact check our decisions and make sure that we're not falling too far outside of what particular properties are in that area and what they're demanding for price. So next thing we do is we ensure that that pricing differential between normal days and major event days are substantially different. Also, the pricing differential between weekends and weekdays are different. That's going to be something that we want to make sure that we differentiate, because there's more demand on those major events and there's more demand on those weekends than there are going to be on weekdays. So we want to have different pricing associated with those in order to try to maximize our revenue. Now, if you are over 50% occupied, you increase your pricing by 10% per month out. So if we're 6 months away from an event, or if we're 6 months away from a particular time frame, and we are 50% occupied in that month already, we're going to increase our price 60% out in that month, because we want to slow that down. That book rate is happening too fast, and therefore is showing us that there's a substantial amount of demand for that particular time frame. Now, we decrease our pricing by 10% per week under 2 weeks and under 50% occupancy. So as time goes by, we actually start to rein our prices in if the supply is not exactly what we expect that supply to be. Then lastly, 10% per day if under 50% within 7 days, down to whatever our bottom cap is. So for each of our properties, we're going to have a bottom cap, a price that we will not rent that property for per night less than X price. And we will go all the way down to that bottom cap as we get very close to that time frame for booking. So that is really how we kind of hone in and understand and test and realize what our market is doing and what the true supply is for that market in that particular time, so that we maximize our revenue. So we'll give you a few more examples here. So this is a screenshot of this particular property in this particular market. And again, this is a vacation, it's a beach vacation rental market in the state of North Carolina. So this shows pricing density per month. So what I want you to notice here is blue means that it's a less dense price. So it's not as expensive. There's not as much demand. The book rate that's coming through for most of the properties, for the aggregate properties in the area, are not higher prices. And red means they are higher prices. So what this illustrates is it illustrates seasonality within those markets that we're actually operating in. And seasonality is something that is extremely important because it tells you, again, that supply and demand. It tells you the supply of people who are trying to come to vacation at that point in time, and you want to make sure that you're pricing appropriately for that. So our off season in this particular area is November, December, January, February, and March. Then we start to get a little bit higher prices as we roll through April and May. And then we want to hit our peak prices from June all the way through about the middle of September. So it's not uncommon for us to have pricing differentials for these different time frames up to double or more. In certain markets, it's even more than that. In this particular example, we're all the way up to double, sometimes even triple for those peak season months, so that we make sure that we're optimizing for that revenue. So here's just another example here. So this is February. So February, this is an actual screenshot from Airbnb for us. February, you can see what our actual pricing is that we have in February for different days. So the 24th, 25th is a weekend. We're priced at $140. The 13th is a weekday at $119, and we're closer to that time frame at that period in time. So here's March. So February, we had as low as $119. March, we're starting to generate and increase those prices. So on weekdays, we've got it at $175. Weekends, we're at $199. Once we hit April, and if you'll look here, our bookings in April are starting to increase. We're almost to that 50% mark, and we're actually 4 months out. So at this time, we were 4 months out when we took this screenshot, which means that we're getting close to a spot where we're going to start pushing those prices actually up because of the demand for that particular week. Then we hop over to May. May, we actually increase, and we're not specifically talking about this, but I'll touch on it real quick. In May, we actually increased the amount of required days that someone has to book in order to smooth out and maximize that revenue and make sure that we don't have days that are missing. So we've got a very specific model that we use for that too, that I'll make another video here for you all to watch to understand exactly how we do that. But from a pricing standpoint, in May, we're charging $199 across the board, but we're requiring this far out, we're requiring 7 night minimums. So if someone comes in here to book, they're going to book 7 nights at a time. Next, we have June. So June, you'll see that our prices jump up quite a bit. We get up into the $350 range. And if you'll notice, we already have bookings out in June currently at those higher prices. That's because, again, the demand during that time frame is substantially more. And then lastly, we've got July. So July is our peak season. This is when everyone wants to be there. And this is where we price at significantly higher prices than the rest of the year in order to try to maximize that revenue. So that concludes this. Thank you all for coming and watching this. Make sure that you subscribe, and I will take you through more of these videos and give you more ways that we work to maximize our revenue. It's not just price. Today we talked about price. There's a whole lot that goes along with just operations and customer satisfaction so that you can make sure that you give your customers the greatest experience that they can possibly have, so that you can charge prices like this and you can generate that maximized revenue for that particular square footage of that property that you have. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you again soon.